Hello again, everybody. We are back again, your panel of favorites here at winnersandwhiners.com. We're going to take a look at the upcoming Premier League season. I'm kidding. Final Four, Todd. We're going to take a look at March Madness, of course. And by the way, if you haven't picked up the Winners and Whiners March Madness preview guide, it is free, baby. Just get over to winnersandwhiners.com, click on the link, and download the guide. It is chock full of great information, including all the first-round matchups, the team bios, and some tips and tricks to help you all the way through the tournament. So, joining me on my mission today, you know them, you love them. They're all veterans here. Let's start with my my ex-partner and friend from many years. I've known these guys, all these guys I've known a lot of years. So, the one, the only, the pride of Brooklyn, Scott Reichel. What's up, buddy?
Yeah, doing pretty well. Proud to, be in New York while none of my teams locally got in. So that's how it goes. St. John's did not get in. I don't believe any New York teams won their conference, so it is it's a barren wasteland for college basketball in New York right now.
I had high hopes for Fordham.
Yeah, unfortunately, the Rams couldn't get it done. But still, then St. John's opted out of the NIT. So, yeah, there's really nothing going on right now for New York basketball besides the Knicks, because we know the Nets aren't any good. So looking forward to the actual tournament, but to be honest, there are some games in Brooklyn taking place, but there are no New York teams involved. So, yeah, looking forward to college basketball.
Well, we look forward to getting back to that Big East bitterness, and we'll touch again on that here in just a minute. But from the other end of the great state of New York, now making his home in South Carolina, somebody said it's about time. Have you switched to the Cubs? Somebody said in the comment section it's about time to switch to Cubs gear.
No, I have a Cubs shirt on, but I didn't grab the hat because I was too lazy to figure out where I put it.
This guy cheers for nothing but winners. I'm surprised he's not a Maple Leafs fan as well. You know him, you love him. He's the perennial second place with his team. It's Chris King, everybody. What's up, Chris King?
Second place, but I put up more.
This year in the NFL, you tied for fourth. So,
but hey, we still put up winners, and that's what matters.
Okay, sure.
But no, unlike Reichel, teams from down here actually made the tournament, so a lot of excitement around Brad Burnell, because there was reports last season that if he didn't get this team to the tournament, he was going to be out on his ass.
And you want to tell us who that for the 99% of the people that aren't as geeky as you are about this, you want to tell us who that is?
He's the coach of Clemson basketball.
There you go. Thank you very much.
And then Lamont Paris did a great job with South Carolina turning that team around, because, they were a dumpster fire the last several years. I don't know if either team will go anywhere.
30% of the people listening just went, oh, fuck, Clemson is in South Carolina? I had no idea. It was out there somewhere.
At least Lefty Driesell knew where it was.
Is Clemson a basketball school now? People were talking.
There's at least 3 or 4 people saying that, because they're tired of Dabo Swinney.
Every year there is a mid-major team that I find out their location that I did not know it before. You get your Bellarmines, and you're like, you know where they are roughly because who they play with, but you don't know where they are. You don't know where Bellarmine. Where's Bellarmine, Chris?
That one I wouldn't say it's in Kentucky. Yeah, I was gonna say I thought it was in Kentucky.
Yeah.
Is it Kentucky?
I think it's Kentucky. I didn't know McNeese. McNeese is the answer for this year, because I forgot.
McNeese is in Louisiana.
They're in Louisiana, yeah. I pieced that together because Will Wade got thrown out of LSU and he stayed local. That's why I realized that. But still,
Bellarmine.
That's the school I learned this year.
They're in Lake Charles.
Yeah. Oh, down Lake Charles, Louisiana.
And Bellarmine is in Louisville, like David said.
All right, so let's finish up with the guy that is the master of basketball geography. Apparently, he comes from basketball and football hotbed of Ohio, now making his home in Houston, Texas. David Delano, what's up, brother?
What's going on? I actually went to the Southland Conference tournament last year at McNeese, so that's why I know that one. I'm doing good. Houston, obviously, high expectations. Ohio teams, I guess it's down to the pride of Akron for at least for the big tournament.
What a
NIT
game,
and
what a game
CBI.
that was, huh? Yeah. the Akron and Kent State game. Holy crap! Dumbest foul we've ever seen.
I remember the dumb foul that I think it was Seton Hall and Butler 8 or 9 years ago, where they fouled him with basically no time left in a tie game on an offensive rebound away from the play.
That's like a rebound and whatever. This guy,
but he never would have got a shot off.
Fouled up one.
I didn't read any foul. Did he think they were down? Did he think they had to foul? I
thought they were down one. He wasn't off by 1 point. He was off by 2 points. That's not good.
It's J.R. Smith syndrome.
At least that was a tie game. They had overtime after that. The guy was off by 2 points.
Of course, it's easy to remember the dumbest timeout ever called.
Chris Webber didn't have any, but does that count?
Of course. That's exactly right. So, and then half the ones Andy Reid does. But anyway,
on the plus side, at least Steehn didn't guess the wrong city that Delano's from this week.
I did not. No. I steered clear of the Akron-Toledo debate, although I will never forget now it is Toledo. So.
Speaking of Toledo, I think Toledo made history. I saw they're the first team ever to win the regular season conference championship 4 years in a row and fail to win the conference each year, and also fail to get in that large bid in the NCAA tournament any of those 4 years. So Toledo made some history.
Different conferences ebb and flow. Sometimes the Big East gets love, sometimes they don't. But one thing's consistent: the committee always hates the MAC. No question about that.
That's true, because I remember when Buffalo won the tournament or won the MAC a couple of years ago, and they slotted them as a 6 seed, even though they were like 28 or 29-5. And they ended up they won the first round. They beat up Bobby Hurley's Arizona State squad. Then they ran into Texas Tech.
I picked Buffalo. I think I picked him to make the Final Four that year, and then Texas Tech beat him by like 90. But
that was the year after they won. That was the year after they won 2 games, right?
Yeah.
After they kind of surprised.
They beat
everybody.
Arizona and DeAndre Ayton 1 year.
Right. All right, so let's get rolling here. We're not going to break down every game. We're not going to break down every game we have on each of our brackets. It would take too long. We're just not going to do it. We're going to talk real briefly about the first 4. Because as we record this, it's Tuesday afternoon, so we got the game starting tonight. So I want to talk a little bit about the first 4, and then we'll go on from there. But first of all, I want to talk about every year when the brackets are announced, there's some terrible injustice that's been done. I know everybody on this panel has their own opinion of what the biggest injustice is. Scott, time to vent. Let's hear about the Big East.
Well, first of all, I do want to commend the committee because I had Oklahoma to miss the tournament at plus 210. So I want to thank them for not putting Oklahoma into the field. They were officially the first team out. So missed it by that much, but I appreciate it. My issue is the Big East. I just find it hard to believe watching that conference for most of the year. Of course, being from New York, I do root for St. John's. So I'm not going to make a biased rant about St. John's in particular. But watching that conference and realizing that UConn got a 1 seed, Marquette got a 2, and Creighton got a 3. Defending champions as well. You're telling me that no other team could get into the field? How do you have 3 teams, each as a top 3 seed, and then you have nobody else in the rest of the field? Like, I just don't believe the drop-off was that large between the top 3 teams and everybody else in that conference. Now, you can make the argument of, well, St. John's didn't have enough win. That's fine. Whatever. Maybe not St. John's in particular. But there's no way that St. John's, Seton Hall, and Providence should, all 3 of them, not one of them got in. I find that insane. I think at least one of them should have gotten in. Seton Hall had a bunch of injuries midseason, which contributed to some losses. They beat UConn, from what I remember. And apparently that doesn't mean anything because they beat UConn and they still ended up not being in the field. I don't know how Seton Hall or Providence or St. John's, mostly Seton Hall, didn't get in. The main issue or the team I would have taken out is probably Virginia. I mean, in addition to not being very good at basketball, does the committee realize that people want to actually watch these games? Nobody wants to see Virginia play basketball. Like, I'm sorry, it's a miserable viewing experience. But my main issue, you can mention a lot of them. Seeding was a mess with, for example, FAU being an 8 seed, which I find absolutely insane. Duquesne got an 11. I don't know how that happened. A lot of different seedings that were weird. Michigan State, I thought, was a weird seeding too. The point is, though, my main issue was the Big East. The fact that this conference only got 3 teams, I find insane, and I find a bit offensive. That was my main issue with the committee.
All right, very good. You know, if we all comment on every one of them, we're going to be here forever. So I'm just going to leave it without comment. Chris, what's your biggest injustice?
I think the biggest injustice, piggybacking off what Reichel said, is Providence. You know, you look at this team, they beat Creighton twice. They beat Marquette. They beat Wisconsin. These are all teams that went to the tournament. And like we said, a couple of them are high seeds. They beat Creighton in the Big East tournament. They lost to Marquette by 11 in the semifinals. If Bryce Hopkins hadn't gotten hurt in January, I don't think they have that 4-game losing streak in early January that drops them to 2-4 in the conference at that point. And this team probably wins 2-3 more games, and it's not even a thing about them getting slighted. But as it stands, you know, you win 21 games, you're 21-13 after you lose to Marquette. They had a resume that belonged in the field, and the other one I think would have been Pitt. But Pitt shot themselves in the foot because, you know, when you have a non-conference schedule ranked 343rd in the country, you know, you didn't really beat anybody outside of the ACC.
Okay. All right. Very good. Mr. Delano, who grinds your gears this week?
Well, I'm not really too mad about it, but I could definitely agree with Reichel. I could do without Virginia in the tournament. I mean, even when you look at their Ken Palm ratings and everything, I don't think Virginia needed to be there, and I also hate them how they play. I also could have done without Northwestern. I didn't think they needed to be there. St. John's, I do think St. John's should have gotten in. So another conversation. I think that they should have went to the NIT, though. I didn't like how I know it's Pitino's first year, and I like Pitino, but I just don't really like the complaining and then not going to the NIT. My philosophy is if you really deserve to be there, how about you just go and win the NIT? Because we see that happen a lot where teams will complain, oh, they should have got in, and then they go lose their first NIT game. It's like, well, maybe not. But so maybe I think St. John's, Indiana State, I'm not going to say that they're the most deserving, but it would have been nice to see they had a great season, and it would have been nice to see them get some love as a mid-major. I think that Indiana State would have been an interesting team to be in there. And Ohio State, they needed to win one more game. I understand why they weren't in there. I think that right now they're definitely the way they were playing since making the coaching change. But I understand it is about the full body of work, so I understand why they didn't get in. But I would have liked to have seen Ohio State over like Northwestern, St. John's over Virginia, and I also would have liked to have seen Indiana State in there.
Is it time to have a conference or to have a discussion about net rankings? Because net rankings had Indiana State rated at 29 or 28 was their final ranking. Ken Palm had them at 45. What are we doing here, kids? I don't get it.
Personally, I don't.
About it. Pitino thinks that the net ratings are fraudulent, and I don't think he's wrong. I don't know what the hell net ratings even do anymore because you're taking certain teams that have underwhelming net ratings. You're ignoring other teams that have good net ratings. So what's the point of the metric if you're going to pick and choose when to use it?
And he's not the only one to say that, because not to go back to the person that we had to talk about describing who he was, but Brad Brownell said the Big 12 has been manipulating the net rankings because they play a bunch of nobodies in non-conference play and beat them all by 40 or 50 points. Yeah. So it boosts their net rankings. And then when they play everybody within the conference, all their games are against highly ranked teams.
I do think what stood out to me too, and kind of piggyback with Reichel, I think it is weird how the Big East got only 3 teams, but all the teams are in the top 3. And I'm happy for the Mountain West, but it's like to get 6 teams, but then a lot of those teams be in that 8 to 11 range. It's interesting that they would get 6 teams and the Big East would only get 3 when all 3 of those teams are so highly touted and rated. So that was a little weird.
I don't understand the Mountain West outrage. It's like, well, they're underseeded. You got 6 teams. You got 2 times the amount of teams as the Big East. Why are you complaining?
Yeah, it does seem a little hollow. As far as my beef, I'm gonna stick up for the American Conference a little bit, and in particular, the regular conference winner, South Florida Bulls. The Bulls had a great season. Went 24-7. They went 16-2 in conference play, won the league by 2 games, and yet absolutely no love because they lose in the finals, lost in the semis. I don't remember.
No, they lost in
pretty
the
early in the tournament.
Yeah.
Huh?
they lost.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say they went down. I think in one of the earlier rounds because the final was UAB and Temple.
It was
Well,
definitely not the final. They lost pretty
had to
early
be-
on.
They lost in the semis.
It
Yeah,
had to be semis, yeah, because if they're playing UAB, that has to be the semi. And I think they had a double bye too.
yeah, they lost by 10 to UAB.
So yeah, anyway, and there was a team that got no love all year long. They're not highly ranked in the Nets. They're not highly rated by Ken Palm. But I think at some point, going 24-7 and 16-2 in conference has to mean something. And you talk about their non-con schedule. It wasn't awful. They played UMass. They played Florida State. They played Loyola Chicago. So, I mean, they played some teams. They didn't know Florida State was going to be awful. That's a Power 5 school. They're stepping out there. They're playing UMass, a traditionally good team. Playing Loyola, good team. So, I don't know.
And they played Hofstra, too, and Hofstra is usually not a pushover either.
No. And they
South Florida.
They got beat by Hofstra. So
South Florida was the great and the only area that mattered, and that was against the spread. They were tremendous.
Oh my, and I'll be the first to admit that they have a soft spot in my heart because they made me so much money in the last 4 weeks. So
it's the curse of Jim Williams.
What's that? How so?
Jim went to South Florida.
Oh, there you go. I did not realize that. So all right, so. We needed the vent. We needed to get that off our chest. So let's talk a little bit about the first 4 games. You got the surprising. You got Wagner going against Howard. You got Virginia going against Colorado State. Those are Tuesday night games. Guys, you guys like a lot of dogs in these 4 games. What's your favorite dog here? But between let's break it in all 4 games. Your favorites are Howard, Colorado State, Montana State, and Colorado over Boise State. Who do you like there to jump up and bark? Anybody? Or is it chalk all the way?
It's not going to be chalk all the way. I mean, worst case is one of these 16 seeds. Nobody knows anything about these 16 seeds. I mean, we see it every year. You just have 2 teams that show up in a neutral and they go at it. It's going to be a close game, unpredictable. It would not shock me if Wagner's slow pace kind of gets to Howard a bit. I don't think either team's that good. I probably would assume Howard's going to sneak it out, but if Wagner pulled it out, I wouldn't be shocked. If I had to pick one underdog, it's going to annoy some people because I just criticized why this team's even in the field in the first place. I'm not going to fully count out Virginia. I think that Colorado State is a team that was peaking a lot earlier in the year. Mm-hmm. Let's put it that way. And it seems like they've been struggling a bit more down the stretch. Stevens has been there for what feels like 30 years, so at least they have some veteran guard presence there. But Virginia, we know defensively is going to bring it. We do know that even though the ACC is down this year, the ACC, I do believe in general, at least based on brand recognition, is a better conference than the Mountain West. And the Mountain West, besides the Cinderella run that San Diego State had last year, historically, they're a really bad conference in the NCAA tournament.
That's
so
first round exit team. No,
they're really, really bad, historically speaking. I'm going to lean Virginia on the premise that they shoot at least 60% from the free throw line. Big if. They might shoot 20% in any given game from the foul line. But I'm going to lean Virginia. I think defensively and with the lack of pace that both teams possess, this game might be really, really ugly. And if that's going to happen, that tends to benefit Virginia. If I had to pick one dog, I kind of like 2. I like Boise and I like Virginia, but I'm going to lean Virginia more.
Okay. All right, very solid. Chris, what's your plays these next couple of days? What are you on?
If I'm taking an underdog in these first 4 games, it's going to be Wagner. I mean, if you look, Howard, sure, they won the MEAC. They beat Delaware State in the final. Nobody expected Delaware State to be there. We talked last week. We thought it was going to be North Carolina Central, and they crapped out. Howard shoots a lot from 3-point range. But guess what? Wagner can defend the 3. Mm-hmm. They're, I think, in the top 10 in the nation in 3-point defense. They're going to make life difficult. They're the second slowest team in the country in tempo, behind or only in front of Reichel's favorite team in college basketball, the Virginia Cavaliers.
They
Absolutely.
play on the same day, man. The first day of the tournament, you got the two slowest teams in the country.
And you should be rooting for them anyway. They're from Staten Island.
Well, thank God that those games go at the same time.
That way you can flip back and forth and fall asleep.
They do not go at the same time. Wagner's at 6:40. Virginia's at 9:10.
Oh, I didn't know. I thought they started them both at the same time. Oh God! So you're gonna have to watch those two back to back.
They buried both games on True TV, so nobody would bother Googling what channel it is. But still, you have two of the slowest teams in the country playing back to back. That's not fun.
Not two of the two. Two slowest teams. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
I would take Wagner. To Reichel's point about Boise State, I can't trust Boise State. They're 0-8 in first round tournament games.
I'm not a Boyle guy as a coach in March, but he did a good job with this team. So
I'm not a Leon Rice guy.
That's fair. That's fair too.
And
I
Boise
want to point
State,
out with Howard, by the way. Do you think they have an experience advantage because A, they made the tournament last year, and B, they have a 50-year-old on their team because Towns is somehow still in college? Does that benefit them?
I guess it could benefit them to some point.
Mr. Delano, what do you got?
Yeah, I absolutely think so. And I'll say we're talking about actually bet on Howard. I like Howard in that game against Wagner. I mean, Wagner, it's amazing that they're here. I believe they're down to 7 healthy players. They may have some extra guys from the football team to help them out. I know that they play at a slow pace and everything, and they don't allow a lot of points. But the big thing is there's a big offensive advantage for Howard, big defensive advantage for Wagner. But I think that they're just going to get worn down as this game goes along. I don't think that they have enough legs. Howard, I think, is a lot more talented. I've actually watched a few of Howard's games this year. When they played Georgia Tech earlier in the year, only lost by a couple points. They lost to Cincinnati in overtime. Even last year when they lost to Kansas, I mean, they put up a lot of points. Howard has been able to compete a little bit with some pretty good teams when they've had to. I haven't seen that out of Wagner. And even though they do defend the three pretty well, they let their opponents shoot a ton of threes. About 41% of their opponents' shots are threes. And Howard's in the top 20 in the country in three-point percentage. So I do like Howard in that game. As far as underdogs, now all these are like 2 or 3 point underdogs. I don't love it, but I'd say I like Grambling State, maybe against Montana State. I think for that Big Sky Conference, it's a little unfortunate that Montana State got there. They really were middle of the pack, not one of the better teams in the conference. Eastern Washington, it would have been probably better for the conference. I think that they would have been more exciting. So I like, I would lean on Grambling as far as an underdog. And that Colorado-Boise State game, I think that's one of those plans where whoever wins can make a run. I would lean on Colorado on that one, even though I do like Boise. I really like the Colorado team. So underdog for me would be Grambling.
Okay. Yeah, I don't hate that at all. This is a Montana State Bobcats team that finished 5th in the conference, 17-17 is their record on the season, and they went just 9-9 in conference play. So, this is a good Grambling team that definitely could make some noise for sure. This Wagner Howard game, man, it's the number 334 offense against the number 334 defense of Howard. So it's going to be and the second slowest team in the country. So it's going to be a slog. Either one of these games tonight make it over. 127.5, 120.5 is the last numbers I saw.
Money's actually come in on the over. I believe in both these games. The total's actually gone up a bit, which I find fascinating. The Howard game, I think, has a better chance of going over than the Virginia game because I do think if Howard can make their threes and maybe they can force the game to be played faster, Colorado State and Virginia both play slow. So I just expect that to be a slog the entire way through. But at least Howard tries to play fast. Maybe they can force the game to be played at their own speed. If I had to pick one over, it'd probably be the Wagner game.
Okay, and that has gone up, to 128 from 127.5, and the Virginia game has gone up to 121 from 120.5. So there is some over money coming in. Chris, what do you think? Either one of these games go over?
I think if it does, it's going to be Colorado State because unlike Virginia, they know how to shoot free throws. And, late in games, if Virginia's trailing, they're not going to have a choice but to put guys on the line. And you look at that team, and, Steven shoots 84%, and Nick Clifford shoots better than 75, and Cartier shoots 83. I mean, you're going to put those guys on the line, they're going to knock down free throws, and, free points when the clock stops is everybody's favorite when you're an overbidder.
Right. Yeah, absolutely correct. So, all right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I like
go ahead, David. I was coming to you, buddy. Go ahead.
Yeah, I like the over in that Wagner-Howard game. I think really if you, like I said, I like Howard. I think if you lean Howard, you like the over. You lean Wagner, maybe more the under. Just because even though Wagner likes to play at a slow pace, they're so inefficient offensively that if they fall behind, they're going to have to speed up a little bit and get some more possessions in this game. So I think that, it's such a low number season on the line, even with some late free throws. I think that this one will go over.
Okay. Well,
now, as far as Colorado State and Virginia, go ahead.
I was just going to give you a little fun.
As far as Colorado State and Virginia, you go.
Wagner 12-4 to the under as an underdog. Just so you know.
And I mean, you look at what they did in the game against Merrimack. Merrimack only had 47 points in that title game.
Yeah, under is cashed in 6 straight for Wagner. So I just wanted to just to tell you the headwinds you're going into with your over pick there. I don't necessarily disagree with you. Just telling you. So yeah, okay. Give me Colorado State, Virginia.
Well, I would lean under in that one just because Virginia. I think they are going to slow it down. I don't love it. I'm telling you now. I'm not betting on a under with a total of 121.5, but I still can't trust the over. That's my lean. Out of these that I said, the one that I actually am betting on, I am taking Howard, but I would lean on the under in Colorado State, Virginia, and the over in the Wagner-Howard.
Okay. All right. Very good. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the first round here. We'll do it bracket by bracket. We'll start in the East. Give me some upset potentials there, boys. Give me a team that you think can win a first round game, and give me a team you think can make a Elite Eight run. Let's see if there's any of the dogs out there you think can make an Elite Eight run. If not, have Sweet 16. Second weekend. Chris, go. What do you like? Give me a dog.
As much as San Diego State was great last year, I don't know how well they match up with a UAB team in the first round. It's the ever popular 5-12 matchup there. Mm-hmm. The Blazers, we saw, they lived up to their name. They lit up teams in the AAC tournament there. They hung 93 on South Florida in the semifinals before bombing Temple.
Two of the best teams against the spread coming down the stretch, by the way. That was a real Hobson's choice there, trying to decide between UAB and South Florida. I chose wrong for the record, but those are two teams that have been very good to bettors over the month of February for sure. So go ahead, Chris.
Oh, but like I was saying, this San Diego State team, Brian Dutcher, last year they relied on defense. They had all these seniors. All those guys are gone now. Now they're trying to beat teams in track meets, and I don't know if that matches up against UAB. Because UAB will run and pile up points by the truckload. I could see them winning there and, getting into another track meet with Auburn in the second round.
Right.
That would be an entertaining game. The only other team I really like from the lower seed perspective would be Drake. I think Drake with Tucker DeVries and those guys, they might surprise Washington State.
Washington State was real up and down. They had a nice run there towards the end of the season. They're a great team at home, not so much on the road. So, we'll see. That Drake team has really been under the radar. I haven't heard a lot of people talking about the Drake. Love the Drake.
Yeah, I covered the Missouri Valley tournament, so I saw a lot of Drake. I saw a lot. And that's I was disappointed, like Delano said about Indiana State, because I think Indiana State being in this field would have made things a hell of a lot more entertaining than seeing Virginia and teams like that.
Yeah, that's fair. Reichel, what do you got? And Chris, do you have anybody making? Do you like UAB to make any kind of a run, or just to win a first round game?
I think I could see UAB getting out of the first round. They could upset Auburn, but Auburn would have to step on their own toes and get in foul trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Reichel, what do you say?
So for the East, I went relatively chalky, but I mean, I don't know if Drake counts because they're favored against Washington State, so I guess that counts as a bracket upset, but I think
Right.
Drake will end up winning that game. Besides that, though, I have them losing to Iowa State. They could pull that off, but I don't think Drake is actually able to beat Iowa State most of the time, so I'm going to go with Iowa State there.
That's in
If I
Omaha,
had
right?
to, yeah, I know, not exactly a hot take. If I had to go with anybody, I do agree about UAB. I'm not sold on the San Diego State team. I think that they are a 5 seed because of last year's reputation, which is why I do think that they are pretty vulnerable to lose. Not to mention the Mountain West, once again, historically being just a bad conference in March. But if I had to pick one team that I think could make a surprise run to a Sweet 16 or maybe even beyond, BYU. The main reason, they shoot a bunch of threes. If they go in, they're beating anybody. That's kind of how I'm looking at it. They're going to play the three-point variance game. They do have some options on the inside with Traore, for example. I know the issue with this team is going to be if they go cold, they're going to lose to anybody. They're favored by a ton against Duquesne. And Illinois with Brad Underwood's a team and a coach that has been really bad in March for a long time. I've seen Brad Underwood lose with more talented teams on a regular basis. So I know Shannon's great. I get all that, but they almost lost to Wisconsin. They had a couple of issues early in that tournament. They were down a bunch to Nebraska in the first half of that tournament game. Illinois is good, but the Big Ten, I mean, not sold on this season. So if I had to pick one somewhat Cinderella run, I know that they're a 6 seed. You're kind of hoping for something deeper. I can see BYU making a run if they get hot from 3.
Okay. No, I think that's good. And this is a BYU team that looked really good in the Big 12 tournament until they ran into Iowa State. So, I think that BYU team could play some ball. I think BYU and Illinois. I think that's Illinois by 4.5, 5, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah, probably. Shannon's been carrying the team, but if Shannon does not go for 30, they got problems.
Very good.
But on the flip side, if BYU shoots 3 of 50 from 3-point range, like we saw in the first half of that TCU game a couple weeks ago, they'll lose by 50.
Yeah, I didn't pick BYU to make a deep run in my bracket. I'm just saying, if we're going with the what-if situation, BYU can have a script to do so. That's my point.
Okay. All right, very good. Mr. Delano, what do you got there in the East?
Well, I don't want to jump ahead to Sweet 16. I will say that out of the 4 regions, this is the one that I, at least up to the Sweet 16, I'm the chalkiest on. As I have the top 4. I actually have the top 4 seeds in the Sweet 16 in this one. Watching the Ivy League tournament, I thought that Yale, the way that they play, could really frustrate some teams, and I thought it would be interesting. But the fact that they're playing Auburn, though, that's just not a. I thought there are some teams I think Yale had some upset potential for, but I don't think that Auburn is one of them. So I don't have any big surprises. UAB, San Diego State's inconsistency on offense, and sometimes even from the free throw line in clutch situations. I think that is a potential upset, but I don't have anything too crazy going on in the first couple rounds of the East.
Do you think, just to pick one of them, do you think that Morehead State has the potential to keep it close against Illinois? Do you think they at least have the potential to beat the number?
They have what is the number on that one actually? Is it what
I've got, I believe it's 11.5.
It's a lot. I think it's double.
It is 11.5.
Yeah, I think they definitely have the potential to beat the number. I think that's a spot where Illinois definitely could be looking ahead after winning the Big Ten. I think they could cover, but I don't think they win.
Here's my problem with Morehead State. They were dreadful in their non-con against good teams. They lose by 32 to Alabama. They lose by 30 to Purdue. They lose by 23 to Penn State. Now they did keep it close against Indiana. They lose at Indiana by a point, but that's really the only highlight of their big-time non-con schedule. So we'll see. They're a fun team to watch when they have it rocking and rolling. They shoot very well from 3. I like teams. Is there anything you look for in an underdog? Like, I like teams with veteran guards, and I like teams that can shoot the 3 because they can get hot and beat anybody. What do you guys like? Anything that you look for consistently year after year when you're trying to play a dog?
I like underdogs that score more points than the favorites.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Chris, you have a non-smart
No,
answer?
but I agree with you about veteran guards. Just to touch upon that, I agree with you about the veteran guards. I believe guards win in March, and I am going to piggyback off of that point. I was being annoying with my original answer, but yes, I like experienced guards, especially nowadays where you have a lot of one-and-dones, a lot of transfers. So experience can come in a lot of different ways now because you have teams experienced with multiple transfers, you spend time elsewhere, whatever. But I tend to lean to backcourts. If you can limit the turnovers and you can generate good shots on most of your possessions, you got a shot to beat anybody. And the great stabilizer is usually a very solid point guard.
Okay, very good. Yeah, and I know there's the there's the Ken Palm angle too, where it's a 45 for defense. Like 95% of the champions have been had a defensive efficiency in the top 45, and I think like 100% have had offensive in the top 30. Look the stat up, and I know it's in the guide. I wrote it, but I can't remember exactly what it is. But I don't have it in front of me. But there's a couple pretty good Ken Palm indicators as far as teams going all the way. You know, not to win a couple games as a dog, but I'm talking about to make a run all the way and win the championship. So definitely take the time to look those up because it'll help you when you're filling out your bracket. Mr. Delano, anything you look for?
I look at the matchups a lot. I mean, at this point, sometimes there's certain teams that I've just been following through the season. I like teams that play well and, on both sides, obviously strong offensively and defensively. Like you said, experienced guards, but also have some size, like guys on the wing that can, score, but also defend different positions. I like that. And also shooting the three well, and like you said, and shooting free throws well and rebounding. So just teams that are a little bit underrated that they just may not have had the opportunity. They haven't played, not a team that's played a lot of good teams and just got slaughtered, but teams who just really haven't had that opportunity yet to show what they could do. So a lot of where they're ranked is more off of perception.
Hungry teams. Very good. Chris, you got anything?
One thing you always got to think about is how they played down the stretch. If you got some team that comes limping in and lost 5 out of 7 or whatever, but still got an at-large bid because they play in some power conference that's not the Big East,
Arizona.
Then you have to take that into consideration when you got some of these smaller teams that had to, bust their ass to get into the tournament to begin with. And the other thing is you got to look for style of play. If you're a team like Tennessee or Kentucky that wants to run all the time, and you run into a team like the Pete Carrill Princeton teams back in the 80s and 90s that will grind every last second off the shot clock on every possession and make you defend for 35 seconds or 30 seconds or whatever it is,
yeah,
that can make things difficult for you. We saw that back then with Georgetown, where they barely escaped being the first one seed to lose.
Yeah, the back cut. They were victims of the back cut blues there, man.
Yep.
I worked against UCLA, so Princeton had a pretty good run there.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, very good, guys. Let's move on to the West, and we'll do the same thing. We'll talk about matchup. We'll talk about underdog potential, and who's got a chance to win a surprise game in the first round, who's got a chance to make a deep run. Go, Scott.
I actually went with New Mexico in this section. I know that they're favored against Clemson, so I'm kind of half cheating, but still, right. I was not sold on this Baylor team for most of the season. They're fine. They're once again, they've had better teams in years past, and people are going to pick them anyway because of brand recognition. They won a title a couple years ago. I get that. New Mexico, if we're talking about teams that played well down the stretch, it did come out that New Mexico had to win the conference tournament to get in. Because I believe the committee announced after the fact that had they lost in the title game, they would have been in the NIT. So they playing as well as possible because they had to win out, and they did. And you're looking at Baylor, they've been kind of up and down. They've been fine for the most part, but nothing special. New Mexico's got a lot of scoring depth. They got a lot of talent, and they were a team that was kind of cruising for an actual spot in the NCAA tournament for most of the season. Then they lost at home to Air Force. I don't know how that happened, but still. The point is they kind of played themselves onto the bubble, and they found themselves back on track. I think if you're looking at the overall talent and what they were doing earlier in the year, this team was ranked for a couple weeks. Like, I think this team is definitely underrated. And if we're looking at a team that has the scoring depth to give Baylor a serious game and to make a decent run at it, I think New Mexico's got the talent. And I also don't think Clemson's that good. No offense, Chris. But still, I'm going to go with
defend me in the least.
Yeah, I think New Mexico as a double-digit seed has a pretty good chance of giving Baylor a really good game. So I'll go with New Mexico if I had to pick one.
Okay, Chris, what you got?
To follow up with what Reichel said, you know who else didn't see how Air Force won that game against New Mexico? Air Force. They still don't know how they won that game.
Stunner, absolute stunner.
But then
nobody wins in the pit, and especially not Air Force.
Yeah, I mean, that New Mexico team, they lost 4 or 6 to end the regular season, including that stupid game to Air Force. But then they come back, they blow Air Force out. They beat Boise State by 10. They beat Colorado State by 13. They beat San Diego State. That's a pretty good run of teams that you just went through because the last 3 are playing in the tournament with you. And if you look at the KenPom rankings, New Mexico's ranked 23rd. Clemson's ranked 34th. But here we are sitting at the fact that Clemson plays in the ACC, and because they beat North Carolina and teams like that, they're a 6 seed, and frankly, I don't think they should have been. I think they fall better in the 7 or 8 range. I see New Mexico win that game. I agree with Reichel. I don't necessarily buy Baylor because Baylor was another team. They played real good basketball at home, and then you look at what they did elsewhere, and it was a completely different team. And it wouldn't surprise me if they got a scare from Colgate, because that team that Matt Langell has up there in Hamilton, New York, playing in the Patriot League, that is a dangerous basketball team year in and year out, and they will make Baylor work for 40 minutes before they put them away. Yeah, I don't see Baylor getting out of the first weekend.
I'd like to quickly apologize, by the way, to Colgate. There is a New York team in the field. Apologies to Colgate. You can move on. Sorry.
Well, Wagner is a New York team too.
Yeah, but Wagner won't be around for that long. That's
he doesn't.
So apologies.
You're not a New Yorker if you count Staten Island.
It's closer
Colgate,
to him than
Colgate.
It's closer to him than Colgate.
I was going to say Wagner. I can pass on. Colgate. I should have said. That's my bad on Colgate. But
and this is another example of WTF with the net ranking. New Mexico 22, and they're
Clemson.
I blank. Thank you. Clemson 35. So. I don't know what we're doing here. The bettors have figured it out. The books have figured it out. They've got it right. They've got New Mexico as the favorite in this one. What are you looking at, Dave?
All right, so I like this. I really like the West. Could end up with egg on my face, but I really a lot more I like in this than the East, where I said was chalky. One team that I've been a little bit of a turned into a fan of the last couple years, that I've got going to the Sweet 16, when you talk about teams that could be Cinderellas. I love this Grand Canyon team.
I knew somebody. I was surprised it took until now to somebody to say it.
I mean, the way that they're coached, and even when we talk about guards, I mean, Tyson Grant Foster, guard, 6'7", can shoot the 3. This guy started his career at Kansas, also played at DePaul. This guy's a big-time player. They've got big guards. Ray Harrison, 6'4". Gabe McLaughlin can shoot the 3, 6'7", can board. They've got size on the perimeter. They're balanced on both sides. Last year, I liked it, but they got in as a 15 seed and had to play Gonzaga. Bryce Drews can improve this team, hit the portal a little bit, and I think that they're going to take down St. Mary's and Alabama. I like Grand Canyon in the Sweet 16. And another I will say that I do like New Mexico winning the first game. It's not, we talked about that, not really a big upset. But I like Dayton. When you talk about a team that's deep, they're balanced on both ends. They play slow but extremely efficient. Darren Holmes can shoot the 3. This whole team, they got a lot of guys that can shoot the 3, but he can shoot the 3, rebound 20 points a game, 6'10". I think that they knock out Arizona in the second round. So in this one, sleepers, I like Grand Canyon and Dayton in the Sweet 16.
Woo! Take us.
My concern with Dayton is the fact that they're so inconsistent offensively. They hang 100 on St. Louis, and then they come back and they put up 57 against Duquesne in the tournament.
But you've got a Nevada team that's inconsistent too.
I'm just talking about you can't get in a track meet with a team like Arizona, where if you miss a few shots, they go on a 12-0 run and it's over.
Well, here's my
One thing
question.
I will say, even though it was a 14-point loss, Dayton did play Houston earlier this season. They did not get embarrassed.
That was a neutral, right? That was in a tournament?
Yes.
Yeah, that was. I remember writing that one. I don't remember which tournament it was. The Charleston Classic, was it?
Is the A10 any good? Like, that's a great question because the top 4 seeds lost in their first game. Like, I don't know if the A10's any good.
There's a lot of good teams in the A10. It's just a matter of that they're all so closely packed together. You know, St. Bonaventure and Richmond and Dayton and VCU. All those teams, they're so interchangeable that, you know, on any given night they can beat each other. I mean, we saw Loyola Chicago same way.
But also with the Pac-12 in Arizona lost to Washington State twice this year. I think the Pac-12 has been a little bit of a – the way with that conference, I'm interested to see how it plays on a neutral court because mostly that whole entire league was terrible on the road. Like hardly anybody in that conference can win a road.
Well, it'll be weird for them to play in a tournament venue that doesn't have trees on the floor. So, yeah, it definitely could affect their game for sure. Yeah, this A10. The top 3, you're basically interchangeable. But the thing is, you didn't know who was going to play a shit game from one night because you knew somebody was going to stink up the joint for no apparent reason. You didn't know it was going to be Loyola. You didn't know it was going to be Dayton. You didn't know it was going to be Richmond. But somebody was going to stink up the joint and underperform in any given day. So I am curious to see how the A10 does and see if they've improved when it comes to facing the real world. We'll see what happens.
Nevada's favored,
okay.
right? Isn't Nevada favored in that game too? I'm pretty sure Nevada's like a 1.5 point favorite in that game. I think.
I think that's what I remember seeing. Let me look here.
Which tells you how off the seeding is in that section because you have 2 separate single-digit seeds as betting dogs against double-digit seeds.
Yeah, Nevada's a 1.5 favorite right there, for sure. So I think things would go a lot better if they let odds makers set the brackets, but that's just me. Okay, we're halfway done, guys. Let's take a look at the other side of.
Well, wait, did you have no upsets yourself?
No, you guys pretty much stole my thunder on there. I like. I definitely like that Grand Canyon team. I like their balance. I like the fact that they're equally skilled on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. I don't think the moment will be too big for them. They acquitted themselves well last year, and they've got another year of experience. I don't know about them getting past Alabama. I think that's a good Bama team, and for that matter, St. Mary's a mighty fine team too. But I think Alabama's a little better and a little more consistent. So,
are we sure Bama's beating Charleston? Because I'm not even picking Bama to beat Charleston.
It depends on how they shoot.
That's the point. They've been so Jekyll and Hyde. They've been pretty underwhelming. If we're talking about teams that entered in good form compared to bad form, Bama's been terrible. I'm not picking them to go on a run. They've been really bad down the stretch.
Yeah,
Charleston's won 12 straight.
Peaked in January, for sure.
What worries me about Bama, if you're picking Bama, is they're, like you said, they're one of those teams that when the threes aren't falling, sometimes it seems like their philosophy is like, we're just going to lose the 10.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I will tell you this, and you're looking at a big number in that game by 2 teams that put up a lot of points. Alabama 0-7 against the number when the total is 170 or higher. And they had 7 of those games this season. And they are 0-7 against the number. And that spread currently is 9.5. Bama favored by 9.5 against Charleston. So this is a Charleston team that they both shoot a ton of threes. Both of these teams shoot over 30 3-pointers a game, and that is that's a lot.
Charleston is I think 16th in the country, better than 47% of their shots from the floor come from 3.
That's that's a single game upset that I'm picking. I'm not picking Charleston to go on a run. I think they would lose to Grand Canyon or to St. Mary's. Okay. But that's a massive number. I like Charleston as a dog in the 1-game standalone.
Okay. All right. Very good. Anybody else share the Colgate love? Anybody else got the love for Colgate over Baylor?
The Patriot gets killed every year in the tournament.
Yeah.
I think Colgate can throw a scare into them. I don't think they'll win, but I think they have a shot at covering. I'm not sure what the line is because I haven't looked since yesterday.
Let me see what the most recent line here is. I've got 13.5.
I see it
It
at
is a big
14 a couple of places.
Yeah, it's a big spread.
Okay.
I get that. I'm not picking them to win. They can maybe cover, but I think Charleston's actually alive in that game.
All right, very good. Okay, let's move on to the South, and this is the Houston bracket. I'm anxious to get Reichel's take on one of these games in particular. I think he probably knows which one I want to hear about, but
I actually don't even know what game you're talking about.
He's talking about your alma mater.
Yeah, I am. Let's start with you, Reichel. Give me an upset pick. Give me an upset first round and an upset to go a dog to make a little run if you got one.
I actually went relatively chalky here. Now, I'm not biased towards Wisconsin. As we all know, I try to be a realistic fan. I think they're better than James Madison, but anytime your team is going to go through dry spells offensively, you can get upset, and James Madison was a team that was really dominant all year. They have, 3 losses the entire season, 4 losses? Like, they've been great all year.
31-3, correct. Yeah.
So they're going to be the most popular underdog pick as far as I'm concerned for the 12-5. I think most people have James Madison, and I think that when that's the case, you might want to fade that, actually. I don't mind Wisconsin in the spot, but I think for the sake of any upsets in particular, I really don't have much, but I am going to throw a bit of a question out there. We've seen Shaka Smart lose a lot of games early in tournaments, ever since he had the dream run at VCU. Do we think Florida can actually win if Kolek's not 100%?
I don't know. Now with Hanlon breaking his
They
leg.
lost their center. That was a rough injury, but I'm just asking.
No, I think they have to be. I think they can probably get past the first round, but I think they're going to be in trouble against Marquette.
If you wanted an upset if you wanted a double-digit team that could make the Sweet 16, it's going to be James Madison. If I had to pick one team, but that's the common choice. Everyone's going to take Madison to beat Wisconsin. Duke has not been very good down the stretch either, but I think Duke is going to beat Vermont because Vermont's another team that always makes the tournament and always loses. They never win any games. They always lose in the first round. I think Duke's more talented. Do I think James Madison can beat Duke if that would be the matchup? I wouldn't pick it, but if I had to pick one double-digit seed to make a deep run, a deep-ish run, it probably would be James Madison. No offense to NC State.
See, I think this is a perfect example of what I talked about last week about falling in love. Because everybody's in love with James Madison because they're 31-3. They rolled through the conference tournament. They rolled through conference play. They're a well-balanced team. They're about to run into a Wisconsin team that's been inconsistent. They shit the bed in the second half in the title game. And I understand why they're everybody's darling, but I think they're about to get a rude awakening. I like this Wisconsin team, Scott. I think they're a good, solid basketball team in a very tough conference. And I think James Madison is about to get a wake-up call. I
went pretty chalky in the section. I picked Wisconsin in my bracket, but if I had to pick one double-digit seed to make a run here, even NC State, would I pick them to beat Kentucky? No. If they beat Texas Tech, I wouldn't pick them to beat Kentucky. So you're kind of running out of spots. I went pretty chalky. I don't think A&M would beat Houston. I think they can maybe give him a good game. But I don't really have any Cinderellas here. So if I had to pick one, it probably would be James Madison. But I really ended up going chalk. I even have Marquette beating Florida. I don't really have much in this section.
Does the Houston performance in the Big 12 finals worry anybody at all?
They were injured a bit.
They're just one of those things.
It worries me, but I think that this is a year in college basketball. I think what worries me more is I think that this whole tournament really could get turned upside down because I really think that the margin is so small that I don't think that any of these teams are really good enough to have a bad day when they get deeper into the tournament. We're not talking.
I don't hate Nebraska against Houston. If Nebraska can get past A&M, this is a Nebraska team that can put some points on the board. Obviously, when you're running that Houston defense, it becomes a different situation. But if you can put some points up, because it's a Houston team that definitely doesn't play great from behind, at least when they get way behind. So I think that's an intriguing second round matchup. I'll wait for my opinion. Chris, what do you got? You got a sneaky dog here? You got
Well, I mean, I like James Madison.
That 40-year run. It's the 40-year anniversary, baby.
NC State pissed me off in the ACC tournament because I kept saying they were going to lose. So, no, they're dead to me. I like James Madison. I know you talk about how, you think they're in for a rude awakening, but this is a team. They've got a lot of experienced guys. Friedel and TJ Bickerstaff, they both played at other schools before they came here. Bickerstaff spent time at Boston College. They're not going to be intimidated by the moment. They've won 13 games in a row. You look at some of the games they played earlier in the season. Don't forget they opened this season beating Michigan State in East Lansing. Then they beat Kent State. They're not going to care about the name of the team on the other side of it. They don't care if it's Wisconsin. They don't care who it is. They're going to play good basketball. I would take them with the points. I think they could pull off the upset. I don't trust Wisconsin's offense. Kless Smith doesn't impress me. Kroll isn't great. Wall is inconsistent.
They need Store to have a great game. That's kind of how it goes.
But the other one, if I was going to take a team to make a run to the Sweet 16 coming from the bottom, I think Colorado's going to take out Boise State. I think Florida being without Hanloden is going to be in trouble. And I don't trust Marquette. I think Colorado could go right through them, make a run to the Sweet 16. They've got a good team with Simpson. And, they got Williams back after he missed 6 or 7 games. He came back during the Pac-12 tournament. So now he's got his legs back under him. You've got Tristan Da Silva. Those guys can make a run, and they can make life miserable for a lot of teams. And Marquette, I don't care if Kolek's healthy or not. That team hasn't been the same down the stretch.
Vermont against Duke. Anybody give them the Cats a shot?
I've tried to give the Catamounts a shot for a long, long time. They lose every damn year in the first round.
Yep.
I was hoping Anthony Lamb would win a game, and he would always lose in the first round. So I'm tired of picking Vermont.
They never get a good seed.
They're usually in this ballpark, give or take.
That's what I mean. But you never see them. You never see them on the 5-12 line. You never see them. In the 6-11s, they're always a 13, 14, 15 seed, and it's tough to once you get dropped past that 12 line. We know how the upsets dry up.
As a North Carolina fan, I'm hoping I'm wrong. I really want to laugh at Duke and Filipkowski losing to Vermont in the first round. That would be phenomenal for me, but I don't see it personally.
I don't see Duke going very far.
I don't either, but they have a pretty decent draw.
This is a Vermont team that's been a huge disappointment for bettors this season. I will tell you that, especially when the total's in this range, when the total's in the 130s, 4-13 against the number, boys. 4-13 against the number, and that's exactly where this trend is. So, if it's not a high-scoring game where they can light it up from outside, then it's going to be a problem for the Catamounts. So.
Is that a coincidence? 4-13, they're the 13 seed against the 4. People are talking, connecting dots here and there.
Come on, sheeple, wake up. Wake up.
I mean, the one thing you can say about Vermont is that, they did have some good wins. They beat Charleston on a neutral floor early in the year.
Yeah.
They beat Yale at home. They hung close against Colgate. They lost Virginia Tech. So, I mean, it's not like they played a bunch of random teams that nobody's ever heard of, like some of these teams. They could probably scare Duke for a while.
For the record, just one quick point I want to make, because I don't really have many upsets in general for this section. Does it count as buying low on Houston? Because they got smacked in their conference title game. I feel like everyone's picking Kentucky. I feel like everybody's off of the Houston bandwagon because of one game against Iowa State, who turned out to be a top 10 team in the country. I still don't know how Iowa State's one of the worst 2 seeds. They should be arguably a 1 seed. Like that's a loss that's embarrassing because of the margin. But I feel like everyone's now pivoting off of Houston. I like Houston. I'm still picking Houston to win this region. Am I wrong? It feels like everyone's jumped ship.
Well, I was going to ask David what the health of Houston's team is right now, because they were talking about a lot of those guys were banged up.
Yeah, and I've got Houston coming out of this region too. I haven't jumped off of Houston either, so I am on Houston there, and I don't want to make it roll too long. But the same way with you with Vermont, I remember even writing about them last year on like upsets to watch and last couple years, and I just haven't had good success with Vermont. I am on James Madison. I understand a lot of people are, but I try to make these picks without looking at it. Some things that other people may like, some things that they won't. but I don't want to let that talk me off the games. They've got 3 losses. 2 of them came to Appalachian State, who I think could pull off an upset in the NIT, even though they're in the NIT, not the NCAA tournament. That's a good Appalachian State team. Craziest thing I've got here, I'm going to say crazy, but I know you guys were talking about Marquette, if Florida could beat them. I also don't think Florida gets past the first round. I think that Colorado or Boise State will beat Florida. I'm going to say right now, I think it's going to be Colorado. One thing, I'm just going to go out there with not necessarily the numbers and metrics to back me up, but I actually am going to – they might lose in the first round, but I'm going to take NC State to go to the Elite Eight. I've got them upsetting Texas Tech and upsetting Kentucky and upsetting Marquette. And then I think they're going to eventually lose to Houston. If they lose by 20 points to Texas Tech in the first round, it is what it is. But
let's go.
Yeah, you kind of stole my thunder on that one. I do like NC State against Texas Tech. I watched a lot of Big 12 this year, and Texas Tech. Again, I think the watchword that we're going to use more than anything today has been inconsistency. They play like world beaters one night, and then they come out and absolutely crap the bed the next night. So we'll see what happens there. Oakland, the Bears. Anybody give them a shot? The Golden Grizzlies.
I just think Kentucky's got too much firepower, but they don't guard anybody. So I'm going to lean Kentucky.
Right to the horizon there.
I take the over.
Yeah, I don't see a ton of dog choices here coming out of this. I'm probably going to be the lone voice of dissent. I think Wisconsin takes care of business against James Madison. So we'll see what happens there. I agree. A wounded Florida team, I don't think has much of a shot. I think it's very possible they lose to Colorado or Boise coming out there. So, all right.
The point is, I brought up a discussion, though, quickly, that I'm not sold on Marquette because Shaka Smart loses early in tournaments every year now. So if you're picking Colorado, you're picking Boise, maybe not Florida. Once again, the brackets aren't finalized. I can change mine. But still, the point is, if Marquette lost early, that would kind of be par for the course for Shaka, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. It would.
I don't think it would surprise anyone.
I don't see them losing to the tops, but I think they could definitely lose in the second round. I'm not impressed with that Western Kentucky team. That's another bid stealer. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Smart in the tournament, 8-9 in his career.
And a lot of that was VCU based.
Everybody on we won 5 games in one tournament?
Yeah, made the Final Four. Or they made the Final Four and lost to Butler. That was one tournament.
Okay, so
Kansas. That was like a decade and change ago.
Yeah, he goes 4-1 in one tournament. Yeah,
he went to Texas. He lost to like Abilene Christian. He lost to Nevada one year in the first round. He's had a lot of early exits.
I think the Abilene Christian loss was the nail in the coffin at Texas.
Yeah.
What they have in that game? Like 30 turnovers? Like it was something insane. Like it was crazy how many times they turned the ball over in that game. But yeah.
Okay. All right, let's move on to the last one. We're heading to the Midwest. This is the Purdue bracket. My God, speaking of underachievers. Zach Edey's senior year. Scott, what do you got for us here? Give me some dogs.
I have absolute bedlam in this section. I got chaos. I got Armageddon. I got everything you could possibly imagine.
You got McNeese. You got Samford. You got Texas losing. What else you got?
So I do not have Samford beating Kansas. Once again, I'm going to wait and see about Dickinson's and McCullough's status. But the top 3 seeds, and if you follow the NCAA tournament, you're going to know where I'm going with this. Matt Painter, Rick Barnes, and Greg McDermott. Get your long shot Final Four bets ready, because I don't trust any of those coaches as far as I could throw them, and they're all relatively big individuals. So I got Kansas as of right now, actually making the Final Four. It's in pencil, maybe crayon. It's in pencil or crayon. But I was not going to pick a top 3 seed here. I couldn't do it. It's just based on the history of fading these coaches in the tournament. I've done very well in the past. I couldn't do it. So I had to try to think of a 4 seed onward who could make a run. I do think the Big 12 is the best conference in college basketball, either them or the Big East. But once again, it depends on Dickinson's status, depends on a bunch of stuff there. If Kansas is still injured, I'll go elsewhere. But give me Dana Altman. I think Oregon makes a run. I think Oregon can beat Creighton. I think they can make some noise. He's very good in the tournament every year. They had some injuries. They kind of figured it out in the conference tournament, which is why they're here, because they won the conference. But I have Tennessee losing to Oregon. I have Oregon but beating Creighton and maybe even beating Tennessee. But if you wanted an upset, I have TCU beating Purdue in the second round because it's a Matt Painter special. That's kind of my hot take there. But I took a stand with the Big 12. I think they're a good conference, and because of that, I have TCU making a run, and I have Kansas making the Final Four, which is based on injuries. Hopefully that works out for them. If they lost early too, I wouldn't be shocked. This whole region is going to be an absolute shit show. Full disclosure, but I'm leaning Kansas because I could not look at myself in the mirror if I took Matt Painter, Rick Barnes, or McDermott to make the Final Four. I could not respect myself, so I had to go elsewhere. That's how I went about it.
Kansas 45-1 to win the title, by the way. We'll talk about futures here to wrap everything up, but giving a little preview. Chris, do you have Bedlam in this? Is this your Bedlam bracket?
This is the bracket where the committee's like, you know what we should do? We should take all the coaches that can never win a big game that save their lives and throw them in there. And it's like George Carlin's skit about where he's going to take all the different groups of criminals and put them in different states and fence them. That's basically what this is. And then you're going to open up these little gates, and they're going to be open for 7 seconds once a month, and they have to try to fight to get through. That's basically what this is. You look, like I said, Purdue, Matt Painter, they always find a way to lose. Look at last year; they lost to Fairleigh Dickinson. We see Tennessee. What's Rick Barnes done? He sucked at Clemson. He sucked at Texas. He wins games in Tennessee, but he doesn't win in the tournament. And look who they draw in the first round: St. Peter's. Didn't we see an SEC team seeded second a couple years ago that ran into a St. Peter's team and ended up going home in the first round?
Yes, that does sound vaguely familiar.
Yes, that did happen.
Didn't Purdue lose to St. Peter's that year as well, like in the second round or something? I got to go back and look at it. Didn't they lose? Not in the first. Didn't they lose to St. Peter's later on, like in the?
I think they did.
No, they did.
What year was that? 21-22.
Yeah, I think so. I'm going to pull it up here.
They did lose.
Yeah, they beat Kentucky, Murray State, and Purdue before losing in the Elite Eight to North Carolina.
If I'm Rick Barnes and I see the name St. Peter's, all of a sudden, I felt the water gets real cold, and you feel like the iceberg is close. I'm not fond of this Tennessee team. They got Dalton Necton, sure they got Santiago Vescovi, and they got Ziegler and all that. Doesn't matter. St. Peter's, I know Shaheen Holloway's not there anymore, but you got to give a lot of credit to what Bashir Mason did with that team down the stretch. They won 5 in a row. They dropped their last 2 in the regular season. They lost to Ryder and Quinnipiac. Then they turned around and beat both those teams in the tournament before they downed Fairfield to get here. So you won 8 of your last 10. If I'm Tennessee, I'm worried. I'm not saying St. Peter's is necessarily going to take them out, but it's going to be an interesting ball game there. If Tennessee survives, I don't know if they get by Colorado State in the second round because I didn't see Colorado State beating Texas. I haven't been impressed with Texas all year long. And to quote David, talking about 12 seeds from smaller conferences. He talked about Grand Canyon before. Watch out for McNeese. That McNeese State team played some really good basketball this season. You don't rack. I know everybody's going to say, well, it was the Southland Conference. Well, you know what? They play basketball there too. And the hoop is still 10 feet high and the ball's still orange. And if you win 30 games, and, Will Wade has been there before, obviously, they can make life hell for Gonzaga, who, let's face it, they weren't all that great this season either. We saw them struggle for long stretches of the year. I know everybody likes Graham Ike, but there's no Drew Timme on this team. There's no Hunter Salas. He went to Wake Forest and screwed up his career by not going to the tournament.
Domantas Sabonis is not walking through that door.
Him either.
Yeah,
I think that McNeese State could pull an upset, and then depending on what goes on with Kansas, because like Scott said, Dickinson and McCullough being hurt, you could see McNeese State take out Gonzaga, then beat a Kansas team that's beat up, because without those two guys, they're not very good. And that would just set the world on fire and make it a giant flaming ball of dung as far as the West region goes.
Even with those guys, this isn't a deep Kansas team.
That's true.
This is they don't have a ton of depth. So let me ask, is this the year that Utah State finally wins a first round game? You talk about a team that disappoints year after year. You're like, okay, a Utah State, you got me. I'm reeled in. I like what you've done. Let's see some wins. Every year they shit the bed. Is this the year they break through?
Who killed them last year? Missouri.
Yeah,
they lost by 11.
Yeah. Oh, that game was over at half. Like they were getting buried in that game. But yeah. I got TCU beating Purdue, so I expect Utah State to lose again.
Okay,
that's kind of my stance.
I like Utah State. I think that Danny Sprinkle's done a good job with that team. I think they'll beat TCU. TCU, they're another one of those roller coaster teams, and you look down the stretch and they weren't very good. Lost 4 of their last 6, then they beat Oklahoma, then they lost to Houston. So you're looking at a team that stumbled down the stretch. Back in December and January when they were 11-2 on New Year's Day. Since then, they're 10-10. That doesn't scream to me like a team that has momentum coming into this tournament. And Jameer Nelson, he's up and down. Miller, they're going to have to get 25 from Miller and get some help from Peavy and Anderson in order for them to hang with Utah State. I think the Aggies win that one.
I was going to say, Chris, one quick question. I noticed when we were roasting all the coaches that tend to suck in March, you didn't mention Creighton. Does that mean you actually like Creighton this year?
No, I think Creighton will end up – they might make it to the Sweet 16, but I don't think McDermott will go any further than that.
So who are you picking to come out of the section? Because I got no idea. I took Kansas because I hate the top 3 teams anyway. And Kansas is in pencil once again. I'm waiting for the injury news, but it could be anybody.
Like you said, this region is a giant, to keep it PG-13 and using a military acronym, it's a Charlie Foxtrot. And wouldn't, as strange as it sounds, South Carolina has been in this spot before. They were here in 2017 as a lower seed, made it to the Final Four with a team that had a lot of veteran leadership. Oregon, I know they played well in the Pac-12 tournament, but I also know how banged up they are. They don't have Biddle. They don't have Zarzuela. They don't have Bartholomew. That's a team that's going to be running on fumes. I think the Gamecocks could end up surprising people just because because, like you said, the first 3 coaches in this region are terrible when it comes to big games.
By the way,
Lamont Paris has done a great job.
I think this needs to be said. Last couple seasons, 11-6 is the new 12-5, by the way. Just wanted to put that out there.
I'm taking Oregon to beat Creighton, so I'm high on Altman. That's my coach I'm trusting in this section.
Delano, I got why Akron's going to the Elite 8.
I'd love to see it. I think one thing with this region, which is crazy, though, you look at the teams 1 through 12, and it's crazy, as even that sounds with McNeese, it's almost like, is there really any team that can make the Elite 8 1 through 12 that would shock you? For what it's worth, I do have Tennessee going to the Final Four. It's more of a process of elimination. You asked the question about Utah State. I guess me and Scott are thinking a little bit the same, but a little bit differently. I have Utah State beating TCU, but I do have Utah State beating Purdue. And I think that's just one of those picks that even if Purdue wins, I'll live with it because the fact that this region is so vulnerable, everyone is just loving Purdue. If the last 2 times in the tournament they lost to Fairleigh Dickinson, and I believe the year before that, St. Peter's, it could lose to Utah State. And at the end of the day, just not having the same thing as everyone else in the bracket. So the biggest things I've got Utah State beating Purdue to get to the Sweet 16. And then I've got Kansas and Tennessee over there in that final matchup to get to the Final Four. But I do have McNeese as well with you, Chris. Even though, they do play in the Southland. But one thing about that is they dominated most of those games in the Southland Conference. And you can't really do too much better than that. Purdue, they play a lot of close games on that other side. I mean, if they could play close games and get beat by Northwestern, I think they could get beat by Utah State.
They should have lost twice to Northwestern.
Yeah, exactly. And also, too, with Purdue, when you look at what's happened in the past, with all these expectations, I mean, if they get down, all the pressure is going to be on Purdue. I mean, anybody that they're playing is really playing with house money. All the pressure's on Purdue.
That's fair. Okay. All right. Yeah, it is. I can tell you, being 30 miles from Lawrence, Kansas, where I sit here today, there's a lot of buzz about this Samford team and what they might be able to do to KU. Because you've got, styles make fights, and Samford can put some points on the board. They're gonna score. They're absolutely gonna score. It's whether or not Kansas can do enough to keep up with them. So I think there's some potential right there at 13-4, which is a rare spot for an upset. But I do think there is some potential there for sure.
And they're deep. You mentioned Kansas being shorthanded or being, somewhat, I'd say, top heavy, even without the injuries. Samford does rotate like 10 guys, which can be a problem for Kansas to deal with.
They play. Actually, they rotate 12 guys. There's
12. Sorry.
There's 10. Yeah. There's 10 guys that get 12 minutes or more. There's 2 other guys that average about 7 minutes. So they play. Nobody plays a deeper rotation than fucking Samford.
So who are you taking to be in the Final Four? I took Kansas for now. Once again, I might change it depending on the injury news, but I didn't like anybody.
I feel like Delano betting Utah State. I'm going to take Purdue. I'm going to take the best player in the tournament, who's a senior. If not now, when for this underachieving Boilermaker team?
So you want the Virginia storyline. You want the team that got embarrassed that comes back the year after.
It's what happened last time. There's a lot of similarities between those 2 schools in that situation. So we'll see what happens.
According to the injury report, just to point that out, according to Bill Self earlier today, Dickinson was supposed to go full contact in practice, but they haven't seen McCullough do anything yet.
That sucks. Well, okay, that's not good. That's not good.
I heard him talking last night on the local, and he was very confident they're both going to play. So we'll see what happens. Maybe
playing is one thing. I want to know if McCullers can actually move at like 70%.
Let's know if he can play well. Right?
Yeah, that's kind of my thing. Yeah, that's kind of my thing.
I just don't see any other team coming out of that bracket. There's nobody else there that I like. I don't like Tennessee. I don't like KU. I don't like Gonzaga. By process, I did the same thing with process of elimination. I just reached a different answer. I think Purdue does it. I don't know that. I don't think brackets. I don't think that necessarily seeds hold all the way through. By the way, I thought of this as far as who got jobbed. Iowa State got jobbed out of a 1 seed. Sorry. But
or at least not being in the Purdue region. I don't know how the hell they ended up in the UConn region. How does that make any sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Which means that they were not the top 2 seed. So I don't understand.
Sorry, the North Carolina region.
But here's
the case scenario been the 2 in that region.
But here's the thing with Iowa State. Here's the thing with Iowa State. Look at their non-conference schedule. They played Green Bay, Lindenwood, Idaho State, Grambling, VCU, Virginia Tech, Texas A&M. They lost the last 2 of those games.
Put some respect on Grambling. They're a tournament team.
Right, but then they played DePaul, Iowa, Prairie View A&M, Florida A&M, Eastern Illinois, and New Hampshire.
Yeah, but it's a running joke with the Big 12. You're not supposed to play anybody. It's like an unwritten
rule. Right,
rule.
but I mean that's probably why that probably ended up costing them in the end. I mean, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams that are ranked 307s or lower in the KenPom rankings.
I think it cost them because they were unranked in the beginning of January. I think that's what happened. They went on a massive run, and they're like, well, North Carolina was pretty much always ranked within the top 10, top 15 for the most part. So I think that was a reason why. But
it's unquestionable bias. There's no doubt about it. But if you want to talk about who's playing the best basketball, Iowa State or North Carolina, it ain't North Carolina. Yeah, no question about it. Yeah. No question about it. Especially with the dismantling they did of the number 1 net team, the number 1 KenPom team, and just absolutely destroyed them in the finals of the Big 12 championship. So, all right, so let's talk. We'll see if we can tie this in. Let's talk about who you've got making it to the Final Four, and give me some value as far as future go, as far as the championship goes. We won't go too crazy on the futures, but just give me a future championship and a good price. Scotty, go ahead and take it. Lead us off. Who do you have? We'll do it bracket by bracket. Who do you or region by region? Who do you have coming out of the East? Is that the UConn region, or do you see an upset there?
I got UConn. I don't know how they ended up with the hardest region possible. That doesn't really make any sense to me, but that's where we're at. So yeah, give me
Okay.
UConn. I think they're the best
Okay.
team. If Auburn was in another region, or if you had any of these other schools that actually made deep runs or looked good down the stretch in any other region, I might pick them to make the Final Four too. But unfortunately, the committee screwed them over. So give me UConn.
Okay, who do you have coming out of the West?
I actually went pretty chalky here. I ended up going with North Carolina. Arizona's the 2 seed. Tommy Lloyd is from the Mark Few school of I'm going to choke every big game in March. So I couldn't pick Arizona. I don't think Baylor's that good. So I'm running out of teams. I ended up going with North Carolina.
Okay, yeah, I get that. All right, and then that leaves us the Midwest, the Purdue bracket. Oh, you
I
got
have
Kansas there, you told us.
for
Okay.
now.
And-
I'm going to wait on
all
the
right.
injury news, but I got Kansas for now.
Oh, sorry, and then the South. I missed the South.
I got Houston.
bracket.
So I have 3 1
Okay.
seeds and a 4, which means my bracket's going to be dead in about 5 days. But
All right.
that was the problem,
So-
is that I'm like going into the bracket going, oh, I'm expecting chaos. And I fill up my bracket. I got 3 1 seeds in the Final Four. So now I feel like an idiot. So I got to figure it out.
So the biggest value there obviously would be for you is the number 4 seed Kansas at 45-1.
Any type of chaotic situation in that Midwest section. That's how I look at it.
Okay. All right, very good. Mr. King, who you got?
Well, I think has to look at UConn in the East. You know, you're the defending champs. You got most of those guys back with Newton, and Klingon has really stepped up to replace Sonogo. I like Iowa State because of the way they can play defense, but they don't have the size factor. I think that would make UConn have to adjust. And Danny Hurley is the opposite of Mark Few, where he actually wins games in March. And I'm not sold on TJ Otzelberger because he didn't really do a whole lot of UNLV before he came to Ames. I can see those two teams being in the Elite Eight, but I'll take UConn in the East.
Okay.
If you go to the West, like Scott said, you can't trust Tommy Lloyd. And the way Arizona looked against Oregon in the Pac-12 tournament was less than inspiring. So I think you'd have to go Carolina. Hubert Davis, he had his team on the precipice of a title a couple of years ago. They didn't make the field last year. Now they're back this year with a vengeance. So I'd go with the Tar Heels. I'm like Scott too. And in the South, it's Houston or pretty much nobody because you look at the rest of that bracket.
I'd say Kentucky's a pretty common second choice, but I'm going Houston.
I don't trust Kentucky because, like you said, they play their best players off the bench. They don't play defense. They could get run out of the gym by anybody because they'll hang 100 on them. And if Reeves and Dillingham and those guys don't knock down enough shots, then Calipari loses. And let's face it, his track record isn't the best either. Coming in March lately. And then God knows what the friggin' Midwest bracket. Like I said, I'm going to lean towards South Carolina just because Lamont Paris has done such a good job. And this team has, when they make it to the field or make it to the tournament, for some reason they win games. They're not good necessarily. They don't bowl teams over. They don't blow them away, but they play tough, hard-nosed defense. And we saw it. They beat Kentucky and Lexington. They've beaten Alabama. They've beaten other quality teams in the conference. And I can't trust Tennessee or Purdue. I mean, sure, Purdue has the best player in the field with Edey, and they actually shoot the ball from the perimeter this year, which is something they couldn't do last year.
Correct.
But it's Matt Painter, man.
Okay. All right. And who's your champion? Where's the value there? What do you like? You're picking up
South Carolina because you had South Carolina in the Final Four.
Well, I can't even find them on where the hell are they?
They're 6 zillion to 1. I don't know.
I just can't believe the guy from South Carolina is picking South Carolina to make the Final Four. Who would have thought?
Actually, it's because that bracket is so bad. Like you said,
no, I know. I know that you're not like locally biased. I'm just teasing.
No, because
150 to 1, buddy. 150 to 1.
There you go. There's value there.
Well, if only you lived within 300 miles of anywhere you can make a bet. Actually, you can make a bet in North Carolina now. So there you go.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, very good. Mr. Delano, we're all dying to hear it. Who you got in your Final Four, buddy?
Well, I think the biggest surprise that I have really is going to be in the East, and I could be wrong, but everyone is just saying how UConn can't get beat, and I know that they're the best team overall. I think that they really got I think they really got hosed with this bracket, though. I mean,
They did.
everyone kind of looks at these seeds, but I mean, UConn obviously number 1 seed, number 1 in KenPom. Auburn's a 4 seed. They're also 4th overall in KenPom. Iowa State is 5. They're all in the same bracket there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go with the an upset. I mean, I can live with it if it doesn't happen, but instead of having UConn going to the Final Four like everyone else's bracket, I'm going to take Auburn to go to the Final Four. They're plus 490 to go to the Final Four. I think that they're going to knock off UConn, and then I've got them knocking off Iowa State. I think Auburn I think there's definitely value on that side. On the West, much as I said that I like the fact that I like Grand Canyon and Dayton to make runs, shows that at some point though I do think that that they're going to run out of steam, and I went with North Carolina. Interesting though that North Carolina still as a number 1 seed, it's plus 340 to win that region. So I like North Carolina there. The South is going to be the most chalkiest for me on who's coming out. I like Houston. I think that out of UConn, Purdue, Houston, it really depends which one you trust. I know that there's going to be one or two that are going to let us all down, and one of them that is going to prevail. For me, I think that that's going to be Houston. I've got Houston going to the Final Four, and I've actually got Houston knocking off North Carolina to win the whole thing. And in the Midwest, I've got Tennessee. I don't necessarily love Tennessee, but I don't trust Purdue. Don't trust Creighton. In Kansas, as much as I want to, you couldn't have worse momentum going into the tournament. So it's hard for me to go with Kansas as a 4. Then you got Gonzaga as a 5, who I think is going to lose to McNeese. So out of those top 5s, there's so much. By process of elimination, I've got Tennessee. So, and they're plus 340. So I've got North Carolina, Auburn, Houston, and Tennessee in my Final 4. And 3 weeks from now, somebody may be watching this and be like, "Hey, I got 0 out of 4," but it is what it is.
So I almost guarantee you it's going to happen to one of us. one of us will have nobody in the Final Four. So there you go.
Well, Chris and I basically have the exact same bracket, so it would be both of us basically if that ended up happening. But yes.
All right. For me in the East, I am also going to fade away from UConn. I'm going to take Iowa State. I think this is a good basketball team playing great basketball, killer defense, and we've talked about the importance of having a defense once this time of year sets in. So I like Iowa State in a little bit of an upset there. I will take North Carolina in the West. Alabama is tempting. Arizona is tempting. Just too inconsistent. Two teams definitely could beat North Carolina on any given night. I just don't know that the consistency is there. In the South, to me, this is the hardest one. I'm going to take a real stab in the dark here, guys. I'm going to go with Nebraska. I
was hoping you were going to say Vermont. Now I'm just disappointed.
I'm going to take Nebraska to come out of the South. It's going to come down to Nebraska versus Wisconsin, so it's going to be a Big Ten battle there. And I think Nebraska can win. I think they can beat Houston. I think they can make a run. So, and then as far as the Midwest, I mentioned it before, going chalky there. I'm going to take Zach Edey and Purdue, living the Virginia dream this season. So, all right, there you go, guys. Any final thoughts? Any words of wisdom before we get out of here after only being on the air an hour and a half?
Wisconsin plus 1,300 to go to the Final Four might be worth a sprinkle. No, not Wisconsin. You said Nebraska. Sorry.
Nebraska, yeah.
I got to scroll down farther. Plus 3,000 for Nebraska.
Yeah, I promise you, I'm throwing a little piece of money on that. I promise you, that'll definitely be a play. So. Anybody else? Anybody else got anything?
Yeah. Quick piece of advice. If you are watching the games with other people or at a sports book, talk about your bets. Nobody cares about your bracket. Pro tip.
Fair. Yeah, because everybody cares about your bets.
Just saying. But the point is, at least for bets, you have some people that are like, all right, I also got action, whatever. But don't be screaming out like, oh, I got this team to win in my bracket. Nobody cares. There are 500 people in your pool. Nobody cares. It's fine.
Nobody gives a
especially if you're like
that.
pairing in that first round, against like Purdue or UConn versus Stetson or something like that.
Yeah, you pick a random one. It's like, yeah, I got McNeese to win, and it's like, all right, they win. Where do you have them going? Elite Eight? No, I have them losing in the next round. So you're getting excited over 1 point. Like nobody cares. It's fine. Just keep that in mind.
Absolutely.
I do want to tell everybody who's watching, though, I do want to give out my lock of the year for free. It's gonna be UConn on the money line against Stetson.
Wait.
Oh boy.
Hang on. Here it is. I don't have. There it is. Old time.
It's the stone cold lock of the century of the week.
Time to bet the farm. Okay, we're gonna bet the farm. What's it gonna be, Delano?
UConn on the money line against Stetson. I think it's like minus $500,000.
It's fine. Somebody took a victory lap for minus 4,000 against DePaul, so it's fine for Villanova.
Is that the same person that took the victory lap last year when they picked for Purdue over Fairleigh Dickinson at minus 4,500?
That was not a victory lap. That was actually a potential jump off a bridge. But yes, that was the same guy.
That's what I thought.
I'm glad you reminded me to do that. All right, Reichel, what's your bet the farm? Where's your fucking hat? Where's your hat?
My hat is in another place, so I don't have it right now. But
all right, what's your bet the farm play, buddy?
It's going to be tough to top UConn. I got to find something else.
You should take Houston on the money line.
All right. You know what? It's not going to be a lock of the century, but I am going to go with I'll just go with a bracket opinion. We've seen it a lot recently. I do not think a 16 seed or a 15 seed is going to win a game this year. It's not a hot take, but we have seen 15 seeds actually win the last couple of years. I'm not picking that to happen this year. It's not the lock of the century. You should put everything on UConn to beat Stetson. But still, the point is I'm not picking a 15 seed or a 16 seed to actually win a game this year. It's pretty unlikely. It's been on a good run lately. I think it ends.
All hail the king. What do you got, King?
Well, David took my pick. I mean, everybody was going to jump on UConn. So, I mean, do I jump on Houston over Longwood?
You could also make it a legitimate pick.
I want something more bracket. I did something fun. Whatever.
I think you're going to see Colorado at least in the Sweet 16. I think they get by Boise State. I think they beat Florida, and then they take out Marquette.
All right.
So I can see them going to the Elite Eight.
Delano, I'm not coming to you again. So you're done. You're done. You're dead to me with your UConn play.
You're out.
See, I like how Steehn was trying to take this seriously, and it lasted about 3 seconds.
Yeah, it just didn't work.
If you wanted an actual first-round pick, by the way, for like a surprise whatever, New Mexico over Clemson.
Okay. All right.
That escalated quickly.
It's sort of.
In all seriousness, I really do like Grand Canyon in the Sweet 16 and Dayton. I think if they play, Dayton can beat Arizona. We'll see what happens, but also, if you're looking at points when it comes down and you look and Dayton's probably going to be like a 6 or 7 point underdog, those would probably be, good plays or whatnot. But yeah.
Okay. All right. That's something. All right. I'll tell you what I like. I like BYU minus 9.5 over Duquesne.
Okay.
I think
guy announces retirement. You think they're going to lose by 80?
Yeah, I think that's my. I was so trying to find it, and I can't find our sound effects.
I just want to know who the Temple players are betting on. Can we find that out? Because
they're probably betting on UAB.
I hope so.
I don't know if no one's really talking about this game. I'm not sure if there's value here. Long Beach State. 20.5 point favorite underdog. Against Arizona. Any chance they cover? This is a cool story there. I don't know if you saw Long Beach State. Their coach got
fired their coach and went on a run. Yeah.
Yeah. So playing for him. I mean, any chance they cover? Maybe lose. 84-67 and cover. That might be extra.
We saw Arizona lose to Princeton last year. I'm not laying 20 and change with Arizona.
That's true.
Let's do it.
But that's something you got to think about when you're like betting on these games, right? Like if you're looking at the spread, we know Arizona's better, but They could be up 24 points with 5 minutes left, and it's not necessarily safe. So
that was another thing. It's like I saw a bunch of people betting on Tennessee minus 21. I'm like, why the hell would you bet on Rick Barnes laying 21 points?
Nope.
They could cover.
Hard pass.
It's gonna be me. I'm not taking that.
All right. For everybody that's been waiting for it, here it is. Okay. All right. That takes you back. All right, Shell?
It does. We got to call somebody. We got to bring the show back.
I know, right? All right, you guys have been a lot of fun to hang out with. I appreciate it. Nobody I'd rather talk tournament basketball with than these three guys right here. Hopefully, you guys have learned a little something, given you a little insight on your upcoming tournament. So, yeah, we're getting rid of that. That's it, man. Enjoy the show, kids. It's about to start. The curtain's about to rise. Grab your popcorn, get a comfy seat. Make sure that beer is extra ice cold and enjoy the games. I'm Scott the Steamroller Steehn. He is Scott Reichel at Reichel Radio over there on your Twitter X. Betting Royalty is Chris King's handle on the aforementioned social media platform. And bringing it home, it is Get Sports Strong with David Delano. You can catch his missives over there on Twitter as well. You guys appreciate it. Good luck. Don't forget to drop us a comment. Don't forget to check out all the great affiliate deals. If you're looking for a sports book, if you need an extra sports book, and we tell you that we can't tell you enough, you should always have as many sports books as possible to get advantageous lines. You can get early lines, early value, pounce on those. So make sure you check out the sports books in the link there on winnersandwhiners.com under the sportsbook tab.
Yeah, prime example, because if you like Samford and you want to get on there before they determine if Dickinson or anybody's going to be limited, and then the line shifts on you one way or the other.
And right. I know this is going on for one last thing I want to say, Scott, especially if anybody's made it to this point, you're obviously very invested in this tournament. I think this is a video that we should be able to have mayhem in the comments. Everyone's got to have an opinion on the Final Four.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone's got to have a first-round upset they like. Everyone's got to have a Sweet 16 upset. So if you think that we're crazy, let us know who you like in the Final Four.
Yeah, share
before the tournament.
And then we'll laugh at you when you're wrong, too.
Oh, there's a good chance I'll get in the comments and laugh at them before the tournament. So that's fine.
Oh, well, there you go. Your advance warning.
Yeah, give us your Final Four. Give us some of your favorite dog picks. And most importantly, tell us why we're idiots, because we always love to hear it. I think I'm the only. No, Chris is married too, so Chris and I get to hear that we're idiots enough. But these other two guys, they don't get to hear it enough. So I
tell myself in the mirror every day.
You're not good enough.
Reichel's the opposite of Stuart Smalley.
Yeah. It's not positive reinforcement, it's negative reinforcement. But a reminder, in about 5 days, everybody's bracket's going to be ripped into shreds. It's fine. It happens every year.
Yeah, just make sure you get your butane down, get your lighter filled, because you're going to need it just to fire to that bracket. So, all right, everybody, have a fantastic tournament. I hope somebody that's watching this show, that's listening to us, this is the year that somebody goes perfect. That perfect bracket. Put it out there. All right, you guys, good luck. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check us all out on a daily basis. We all do videos, so make sure you check out the video platforms. If this hasn't been enough of our fucking voice, just going at you for the last hour and 45 minutes, make sure you check out our videos over there on the YouTube channel. All right, you guys have a great time. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again. Take care, everybody.